Junge.
The view you haven't seen, our exclusive on Air Force One. ABC's Jonathan Karl in New York tonight after taking to get here.
That's quite a sight. Welcome to Air Force One.
It's the most recognizable planet.
Go, Martin? Absolutely. After you. All right.
We got a rare and exclusive tour, outside and in. Our guide, Chief Master Sergeant Rob Nation.
This is Chief.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So this is the flying car. That is the president's personal space.
Just outside service.
The president's personal detail.
Yes, sir. Down the hall.
Notice the carpet changes again to the stars.
This situation.
Air Force.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Presidents for 25 years.
I have. Totally realistic, right? Absolutely not.
Today, the president in the air. Time for a brief call.
Hi, sir. This is the operator Air Force One. I'm placing a call for Mr. Jonathan Karl. You'd like to speak with Mr. David here.
A while later, we're on. I love the call from Air Force One today, but I asked you to bring me something from the plane.
Well, David, the thing everybody gets in Air Force One are the presidential M&M. I just don't trip.
You pay in time. You pay in grit. You pay in dedication. So we and love.
Benefit helps me with mine. Put on my foundation. I feel like it looks better. It gives me a really nice radiant finish. I feel like I'm doing good for myself.
It is history in the making, about to land in Cuba. He and the first family took off for Havana aboard Air Force One around 1:30 p.m. East time. Obama is the first sitting U.S. president to visit Cuba in nearly 90 years. This is the culmination of a diplomatic opening announced by Mr. Obama and Cuban President Raul Castro back in December of 2014. Here with News Foreign Affairs analyst Pamela Falk. Thank you so much for being with us. And CBS News producer Portia Siegelbaum joins us on the Havana now in studio. This is really symbolic of change.
Absolutely. It's a game changer. It's a way that this administration is trying to show that it will do whatever it can before it leaves office to begin the engagement process and to try to make it irreversible, is what they say, so that the relation has
needed to come down till it's right there. But President Obama has landed now in Cuba, in Havana. He has a number of with him, only the First Lady and both of his daughters, but a number of senators, representatives, and this 8 years, almost 90 years since a U.S. president has been to the island nation of Cuba. It's been like there leading up to. I know there's a lot of fanfare there in Cuba.
Well, there certainly has been. People are very excited in general, and they've been that way ever since the reestablishment of relations, believing that it's going to mean better times, particularly economically. And there's been a lot of street repairs
on more than almost saying that watching them road repair gangs out, fixing the streets, painting the direction, doing some painting the building, and generally prepping the city for the visit.
Side of that, I've read a number of blogs that said that there are others in Cuba who are highly suspicious, thinking that, joking rather, that the Marines would quietly sneak in behind Air Force One, or that there could be still tension there. Can you describe kind of what it's like on both sides?
Well, what it really is concerned about in certain sectors of society and among Cuban economists about how, once you reestablish relations, as they put it to me, do you prevent U.S. business from swallowing the Cuban economy? Because even economic relations with a lot of European countries and with Canada, the U.S. is so close. There's so an economic takeover that just slides in, and they'll lose their ground.
Are we seeing that a little bit in Starwood, the hotel company here in the United States, signing that deal, the first hotel chain with Cuba since 1959?
Well, and they really need it, because what they've discovered is ever since President Obama has vaccinated, they're not prepared either in the standards, in the service, or the number of rooms to handle the large number of Americans that are coming down to visit the island on people-to-people, religious or humanitarian. So they need desperately someone to pop up. Now, there are foreign hotel chains here, the Spaniards co-manage Cuban hotels, and they're among the best on the island. But they really need space, and they're accepting a deal with Starwood. Indicates that they're aware of that.
That's I want to just point out too, this is a 3-day trip. I want to kind of go over some of the things that President Obama will be doing while he's in town. You can see that all the media is lined up there, ready for the president to come off Air Force One. A historic walk through Havana, near the Catholic Church there, and meet with a cardinal, as the church has played kind of a key role in bringing the two countries together back in December of 2014. Then meet with Raul Castro, and then also meet with people within the private sector in Cuba. Where he will likely advocate for human rights on the island despite this new policy of dialogue. As well, on Tuesday, he will attend that game. Cuban nationals will play the Tampa Bay Rays. It's an exhibition game, but it's seen as something that would bring the two countries together, of baseball between the two countries. Now, Pamela, I want to talk to you a little bit within the agenda that has been set out, Castro, on Monday, but there is no sign that Fidel is anywhere within the plans.
That's so conspicuous in the sense that other world leaders have met with him, but he's turning 90 in August, and it may be a question of health. And really, if he meets with Raul Castro, it's showing more of the bilateral relations. But it's a conspicuous absence in that sense. But just off Bush's point, it's not only the streets that are being cleaned up. There have been a suite of showing of unhappiness in Cuba, and there are a lot of issues. That is, that he would not deal with Cuba unless he could move forward the idea of people-to-people contact, engagement, demonization of, and a bit of a flap. And the day he arrived yesterday, there was a speech by Cuba's foreign minister saying, "We're not going to be to you on our domestic policies." So it's very clear that there will be a lot of differences on claim questions, on fugitives, on Guantanamo. So there's a lot of road before the next. This is historic. It's a scene setter, and the drama that comes will, to some extent, depend on the.
Pamela's point, Portia, I want to ask you, some of those dissidents, the ladies in white, I heard that they go ahead and protest most Sundays, but they protested after a Palm Sunday service earlier. And we've been hearing that a number of them would, and that it was a little bit more that they wanted it to be noticed that these people were being arrested, that there was almost a cleanup in a way. Talk
Well,
about
there's
that.
definitely, and I'll say that the streets are basically pretty empty of people right at this moment, and there are least presence through much of the city. They have always said, the Cubans, that the streets belong to the population, not to what they call the small dissident minority on the payroll of the United States. That had been foreign policy. I had in Venezuela today, and I can meet with Raul Castro, Nicolas Maduro, and Fidel Castro. So it's sort of, they've been emphasizing we remain an independent country, even though we want
Agricultural interests. Is that why these people were chosen as well?
The 90s, when government, U.S. Congress said they can deal with industries and the subsidies would be cut where there had been trade restrictions. And so first came Vietnam and then came Cuba. And they felt that with subsidies cut, they really wanted to trade with Cuba. So some have been dealing in humanitarian contributions for UCA congressional push years. And
most expensive news. This is Air Force One, the jumbo jet that comes with the job of American president.
If you're going to have the king of the Western world, it really had to put in the sky.
I remember walking up those steps and thinking, wow, this is, you're part of that. Right here, America is under attack. This was rocketing up, and Philippus said on Air Force One. It's carried presidents in victory. The world's most famous.
There's nothing discreet about the president's visits here.
It's a statement he is making by 600 flights in. But this morning, all eyes await just one. The plane bringing Donald Trump to Britain. For days now, giant freighters have been flying in tons of presidential baggage.
Helicopters, there's also the convoy of cars, so the main presidential vehicle, sometimes known as the Beast, goes on in advance, and it's amazing on the day on the right.
Stansted is now closed to all other flights in and out.
Grand Prix, we've also a runway inspection, which is accompanied by the US Secret Service, so they're more than happy that the aircraft can land.
Airline is going, and we zoom right.
Air Force One is descending now.
We try to make sure that we hit everything to the
T. The job.
Unprecedented access to Air Force One.
There was a lot of security on the ground. There must have been 100 armed British police. There were 100 Secret Service. There was a backup Air Force One because there were two planes. Wow. Every room you go to, there's a player war. Because he laid things through the interview with me, this meant there was a knock-on effect around Europe of people trying to get into Stansted, because the bottom line, society wants to stay on the tarmac, nobody moves.
Land 179. Air Force One.
The two 30-year-old memory for this, and it's all it's where every single item on board is sabotage. Anything that goes on that aircraft has been secured by the Secret Service. You will then take a chance. Anything going on? Cost $370 million. The U.S. Air Force then spends 4 times the amount. There. And even worse.
So there is an electromagnetic pulse which comes from a nuclear explosion. Air Force One.
Air Force One is in luxury. Former White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card has boarded it thousands of times.
The privilege
W. Bush. The president flew on Air Force One. They have a wonderful suite with a large bed. They have a nice shower and a bath. He has an office. He has very good communications. He has a medical facility where they could actually.
Apart from Donald Trump, while still a presidential candidate, he had his own plane. One, complete with offensive. Now in power, escape for vacations. For Kennedy, it was Cape Cod. For Reagan, it was his California ranch. And for Obama, his holiday home in Hawaii.
Having criticized other presidents for traveling too much on Air Force One, traveling to Cape, he travels on Air Force One. So many places he goes, even on the weekends.
In his first 2.5 years, President Trump has flown to his Morrow in Palm Beach, Florida, 25 times.
And it costs about $140,000 more.
Built for golfing weekends. It's a marvel of military engineering. How born, how it developed, and how it played a part in America's most important events. From the triumphant to the tragic.
President Kennedy's body is to be placed aboard Air Force One for the flight back to Washington.
Known as the Flying White House, Air Force One is linked to an entire ground communications team. On board, staff tend to the president's every request at favorite food.
Uniquely, I ended up with the only fragments the crust off. And President Reagan, meatloaf and macaroni and cheese, and his dessert lemon meringue pie. But he wouldn't order it when Nancy was on board. If Nancy was on board and we had the dessert, she'd go, she ate salads and things of that nature. There is one common thing with all the presidents we found out. They all like butter pecan ice cream.
But whether it's ice cream or Donald Trump's favorite takeaway, staff have to make sure it's safe and has not been poisoned or sabotaged. Ingredient chosen at random and secret.
Yeah, we went to supermarkets and we would go in and survey clothes, everything that their biggest responsibility.
Who looked after the British monarch?
Whatever I imagined the Queen would be, she was. Took her all around the chain. The Queen had an extensive amount of gas while they were riding along. And the Queen said to the President, "Pardon, Mr. President." Remember, they're all normal people.
The first aircraft in the Jet A7. John F. Kennedy took his jet and promised to put a man on the moon. He and his wife also pledged to do something about body
look different. The orange novel just was for the job. He was famous for designing things like locomotives and Coke bottles.
So Louis arrived with his renderings, and he presents them with the primarily red and gold. That will be the livery that you see in your, with a elegant expression. This one, as we see today, really exemplifies those ideals.
So this is the airplane that took Kennedy to Berlin in 1963.
In the world of freedom, the proud is Ich bin ein Berliner.
In 07, there was no mistaking how people felt about the United States of America. When you called it Air Force One, it added a glitter to it that they didn't have before. The two of them descending the stairway down to the bottom. It was a part of the image Kennedy projected. Well, this is the notebook I used when I was in Dallas. I had forgotten my big notebook.
5 months after his triumph in Berlin, JFK boarded Air Force One, bound for elections. White House reporter Sid Davis was with him.
In Dallas at Love Field, spectacular, large crowd. And Jackie, Mrs. Kennedy, did not disappoint them because they got off Air Force One in Dallas and immediately walked right around. I think probably 5,000 or 6,000 people gathered at the airport.
Mrs. Kennedy joined him in the front of outstrips and cameras.
And they walked and they worked the fence, as we call it. They hand over hand, they were shaking hands. The crowd that had gathered for them. It was really a very warm welcome. I rode into town on the press room. Kennedy had given the Secret Service a little lecture the week before. He said, I'm going to Dallas next week. I don't want you running alongside the car. I want the crowd to see Jackie. I was told this by a Secret Service agent. I went downtown, made this turn, and onto Elm and Houston Street, and that's where we heard the shots. They were distinctly three.
Something has happened in the motorcade route. Something I repeat has happened in the motorcade route.
Father lying on top. And when you looked ahead, you saw the presidential limousine had disappeared to the motorcade. They knew exactly where to go. There's a
Being rushed to the hospital.
Kennedy had sat with Miss Kennedy. And just as I got there, the priest said, he's dead all right. I just gave him the last rites.
Chaos. A battle broke out. Texan officials wanted to keep Kennedy's body in Dallas.
Air Force One, request the on board, please.
Air Force One became an escape vehicle as Jackie Kennedy and the service body.
The airplane. And we noticed that here for the aircraft, the Secret Service was getting ready to place the casket on the airplane. And too big. It's a very large casket. They had to chop the handles off. And that they were under great stress, very heavy duress to get that airplane out of. That's my ear corner there. Jack Brooks, Mrs. Kennedy, President Johnson.
Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson insisted on being sworn in as president on Air Force One before takeoff.
Mrs. Kennedy, when she came forward, listening to the oath being administered by the judge, her husband is in a casket in the back of the airplane. I don't know there's any sadder than that scene